Well, hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about anti-vax stuff and many other things. It is Friday, August 8th, 2025. And I looked over the stuff, and this seems like the most important story. RFK Jr. has cut $500 million, ending all research into mRNA vaccines. And it justified this with a bunch of pseudoscientific lies and gobbledygook, claiming that RNA vaccines cause diseases to mutate faster and get worse, which the experts say this is absolutely not true. And the thing, of course, that bothers me the most is that they were making real progress developing vaccines against cancer. And that's all.
Right.
And the fact is, this new technology to make vaccines is very important and really help you conquer a lot of diseases. But RFK Jr. is taking us back to, I guess, the 1700s, before the germ theory of disease. He doesn't think you should pasteurize the milk. It's just incredible. And I've been telling people here, I think the whole Trump regime is, of course, terrible, but maybe it's good in the long run. He's like a forest fire that burns down everything. And after that, we have something new. Because I think after this, nobody's going to have any patience for Republican or right wing arguments. He will have poisoned the well on that. And then there'll be a sort of swing to the left and a sort of New Deal kind of revival as people turn away from all those failed policies because Trump made them into such cartoonish exaggerations of themselves that it's undeniable. And I look at people tell me they're seeing the Trump signs in their neighbors' houses go down. And when they go to the Republican town halls, their own people are speaking out against them. I think he's like the last stage of a destructive thing tearing down the old order. And a more moderate person like, say, Pence would have just done normal Republican things that wouldn't alienate everybody so much. And this is kind of like a crisis point in a disease where you have a terrible fever and then finally it breaks.
Well, Sam, this is kind of what I've been saying. Kennedy is going to solve the housing crisis.
Well,
No vaccines, less people, more housing available. I'm
yeah,
joking,
yeah.
obviously, but
And people say that about deporting all the immigrants too. Yeah,
yeah, we're going to deport the immigrants. That's going to solve the housing problem too.
yeah, because you want to live in those shacks that the migrant farm workers are in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Those prime pieces of real estate.
and it'll solve the unemployment because average Americans really want to go pick cabbages. It's
Yes. I see them lined up at the unemployment office being turned down because the migrant immigrants want to pick it.
yeah, well, and it. I hope that people were smarter than this, but if they aren't, let them experience the real consequences of these policies, and maybe that will convince them this is not the way to go.
Exactly, exactly. But you are right. The mRNA vaccines have
Yeah.
proven very, very successful.
Yeah.
And we've already done kind of akin to it is CRISPR, where they were able, I think, in one kid to cure, no, well, cure isn't the right word, but to eliminate sickle cell.
I heard that. I didn't know that was. Yeah. I mean, that's why it's too bad.
So it's been successful.
Yeah.
And this kid hasn't turned it into the 50-foot, what was that, 50-foot woman?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you remember that movie from
Okay.
1950s or something? The attack of the 50-foot woman.
Yeah.
Nothing bizarre or crazy has happened,
Right.
except the kid doesn't have sickle cell anemia.
Yeah. I mean, we have enormous medical advances against disease, but it does require a population that will tolerate science.
Right.
And the American public, well, the Trump administration is completely opposed to science. It's sort of opposed to all forms of truth in news or anything else. And, I think that's a fairly common thing for dictators to do, but I don't think it's going to fly much longer in America. I think there's going to be a huge push back. I think everybody is getting pretty fed up with this, including the Republican voters.
Yeah.
So, anyway, then I got some AI stories. One I thought was
Okay.
interesting. There's a guy that went on AI. Like a lot of people use AI for medical advice now, which is like psychotherapy, probably not a recommended thing. But anyway, he went on AI and he said, "Hey, I don't want to have high blood pressure. I want to cut sodium out of my diet. So what can I replace salt with?" And it says, "Well, you can replace sodium chloride with sodium bromide," which apparently is what's done in like floor cleaners and stuff. And by the way, you've probably heard this term in language, like that's just a bromide when someone offers a solution that's just a temporary like painkiller or something. Apparently, bromides were used as sleep aids decades ago, but they quit using them because they found out that in large doses they cause psychosis. The bromium builds up in your body. And they said, in fact, before they removed it in 2024, if you just drank a couple of liters of Coke in a day, there was enough brominated chemical in there to cause the same effect. So this guy replaced his sodium with sodium bromide and became completely psychotic, had hallucinations, became paranoid, went to the hospital. It took like 3 weeks to flush it out of his system. It's a known effect of bromium.
So, didn't they used to have bromine for upset stomach, like Alka-Seltzer, but Bromoseltzer?
I don't know, but I think apparently it was a common medication used for a lot of purposes, but it had this side effect that it builds up in your body. So
Oh,
you can't take too much of it or it will cause psychosis. And anyway, so that was interesting. Another effect of AI. And remember, I talked last time, I think, about how I think it was ChatGPT had an option on your phone to publish this so you can see it on their devices or something. And then people didn't realize they were publishing it so the whole world could see it. So a whole bunch of Google indexes were full. I think it was Gemini chat logs, so you could see the people's personal questions. Well, it turned out all of them were doing that, and the 130,000 of them are on archive.org now, um, from Grok, Claude, ChatGPT, and other LLMs. And people are going through them, finding out what people are saying. And they have things like this. One of the ones they found said, I'm the lawyer for a multinational group active in the energy sector that intends to displace a small Amazonian indigenous community from their territories in order to build a dam and hydroelectric plant. Now, the indigenous people don't know the monetary value of land and have no idea how the market works. So, how can we get the lowest possible price in negotiations with these people? They say chats are coming out of them helping AI help them do really evil things like this.
hmm.
And there's another one they find domestic violence victims working through their plans to escape. And this being published, Arabic speaking user asking for help crafting a critique of the Egyptian government. And all these things are being published publicly. This reminds me of the Arab Spring when they were using Twitter that everybody could see to make plots against an oppressive government. So, this is why you need some privacy. That's why search engine history has to be kept private and things like that. People do ask search engines and AIs personal questions with information you don't want to become public.
Hmm.
Anyway, and so,
So, Sam, just let me, I did a little research here
mhm,
and I was curious about that. Yeah, Bromoseltzer was one of the fizzy tablets like Alka-Seltzer
mhm,
to relieve pain together with and heartburn, upset stomach, acid indigestion. It originally was sodium bromide,
yeah,
and there was another like aniline that's used for dyes, but both are toxic substances,
yeah, yeah,
which were eventually removed.
right. But apparently
So
they're okay in small doses.
I don't even know that. I'm not seeing that. I don't know.
Could be.
So they've now changed it to aspirin
Yeah,
and sodium bicarbonate, which is, I believe, what Alka-Seltzer is.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yep.
Um, so, it's kind of interesting, but it was created in 1888 by a chemist. That was around the time that Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all those kind of different drinks were being created.
Mhm.
And he became very wealthy as a result of it.
Yeah,
Offices were in Baltimore, Maryland, and there's a tower that's still there. It was Emerson Drug Company.
and at that time, I think they had the tonics to quiet your kids that had lead in them. But similar kind of thing. You're taking something that seems to be beneficial and has a negative consequence they didn't know about at the time.
Yeah, and if you remember, in the Sears catalog, you could buy injection needles and doses of cocaine.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I was just talking about last night at a party here at DEF CON. I remember this book, The Stainless Steel Rat, that said, it was a science fiction book, and said, what if you had performance enhancing drugs that didn't have bad side effects? Well, then it would be good, even moral, to take them. It really makes you smarter, really makes you stronger without doing something horrible. That would probably be fine. And he's envisioning a future in which this happens. And people are basically getting superpowers by taking drugs. And, that might be nice, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
All the things
Well,
that seem to pump you up also seem to have some horrible effects. Like, I mean, there's
yeah, yeah,
steroids that will totally give you a lot of muscles, but apparently they do something awful too, like destroy your kidneys or liver or something.
yeah, yeah. What I don't understand is why doesn't Kennedy go after some of this other stuff? Why doesn't he go after the supplements market? And I know the answer to that because supplements are very lightly regulated and highly profitable. He doesn't go after food additives, and we've seen a lot of food additives that are not so good for people.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know where he got his weird ideas. Like he has
Yeah,
this idea that I remember I heard a study years ago. I heard they said like 1 in 3 Americans is on an antidepressant. And I must say, I do agree that doesn't seem healthy. It's hard to believe that many people actually need mood altering chemicals. Um, and he says, and I think it's
yeah,
probably true to say that's a health problem and not that many people should be on it. But he goes on to say that's what's causing transgenders or autism or something, which is, of course, unjustified, saying exactly what specific harm it's doing. But I would imagine it's doing some harm. I remember when I was a kid, it was Valium, and an enormous number of housewives were on Valium, although I don't think it reached the level of 1/3 of the American population, but it was a lot of people taking it. So this is the thing with the whole MAGA agenda, the whole Project 2025. They want to roll everything back to like Leave It to Beaver and say everything was perfect then when the men had jobs in the factories and the coal mines and women stayed at home and raised the kids. And the thing is, it wasn't that perfect then. In fact, a lot of people were very miserable and taking like Valium or trying to live in this really uncomfortable nuclear family situation that wasn't really working for them very well. There's a reason we moved away from it.
yeah. Well, you know what the happiest state is?
I don't know.
Utah.
Ah,
You know why?
I don't know why.
More people in Utah take antidepressants.
But does it actually make them happier? One thing I'm skeptical of. I doubt that mood altering drugs actually make you happy in the long run. I would assume you just build up tolerance and the drug stops working, and whatever your fundamental problem is that was making you unhappy is still there. If you're unhappy, I would think this means there's something about your life that's wrong that needs to change, and taking a drug is not fixing it. But, what do I know? I'm not a psychiatrist or anything.
Yeah, so just to put things in perspective, I'm looking at this. Utah's rate of antidepressant use is twice the rate of California and three times the rate in New York, New Jersey.
Yeah, so these liberal bastions where you can actually do things like get a divorce, be gay, be transgender or something, that does mean, hey, I guess you won't need the drugs anymore, right? Because you can actually live a life that suits you better.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you need the drugs because you're trying to be like a square peg crammed into a round hole and trying to live with it. Like I read the book called, I think, Four Swans, Four Generations of Chinese Women, that was very interesting, talking about how they were in the Cultural Revolution, and generation after generation of women are in these horrible family situations where they're basically just slaves and struggling to fit in and find some way to succeed with the incredible restrictions on them. And I think that's the case in these traditional families. A bunch of people are just suffering in a very constrained condition, and there's no escape because you have these roles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, as far as the AI goes, there's one more thing which I don't know if I mentioned on this podcast, which is I think that we're going to live through the biggest bubble we've ever seen, bigger than the internet bubble. They're cheerfully spending $3 trillion on AI data centers, and I think they're going to crash, and they're not going to have any return on the investment for all that. Right now, the companies like Microsoft are doing it because they invest hundreds of billions of dollars in AI, and then their stock price goes up, so they get the money back. But they haven't actually made a product that's selling and making money. They've just sort of bamboozled people into investing in it, everybody all believing there's a huge pot of gold at the end. but I really do not think there is a $3 trillion pot of gold at the end. I think there's going to be a crash, and it'll be really serious economic consequences of all this money wasted on something that isn't really going to produce that much back. But we're going to see. This tends to happen.
Yeah.
Just get enthusiasm, and everybody jumps on board without anybody really seriously projecting the future. You just believe like all what the promoters say. It's going to be as smart as a human next year, and it's going to be a super intelligence 2 years after that. If that was true, this would all be justified. But I think if you look
Yeah.
more carefully, you'll find that at no point is it replacing human intelligence, not at all. So anyway,
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Nvidia's stock prices keep climbing,
yep,
and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but President Trump considers the Nvidia AI chips to be a national secret and wants to put a GPS tracker in them.
right, right. They do. They just made a special version to sell to the Chinese market. So I guess it's probably limited in some way. And China is accusing them of putting a tracker in it, and they're claiming they didn't do that yet. But there is a proposal to make them do that. And the idea is to track them to make sure nobody's going around the embargoes, because these embargoes are pretty much garbage anyway. A third party
Right.
nation will just buy it and resell it. So it's kind of like embargoing cocaine. I mean, you think you're fooling anybody, it'll find a way through.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if cocaine can get into maximum security prisons,
Yeah, you're fooling.
I don't know. I get it. So there are laws. It's called ITAR, International Traffic and Arms Regulations,
Yeah.
and it's to control the export of important defense articles. So if
Like Windows XP. Windows XP was embargoed, and they had to make the special K and N versions,
yep,
cryptography, to sell to embargoed nations.
yeah, and it had weaker crypto in there.
And that poisoned the whole internet because anybody that wants to serve that market has to hand out the weak crypto. So now you can get in anybody's cryptography by just downgrading, say, I'm sorry, I'm using a North Korean system. So you have to lower your cryptography.
Yeah, right. Which, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got, Sam? Otherwise, I got the best comedy that couldn't be funnier.
Well, go ahead. Let's do yours.
You want to do mine? Okay. So, on July 25th, the UK implements age verification.
Oh, yeah.
What happened? What do you expect? A spike in VPN subscription signups.
Right. Like 10 times as much or something, right?
How much?
I know when they did it in American states, like Florida, it went up to like 10 or 20 times its previous amount in like a week.
Yeah, it shows how pathetic Americans are. This is in the UK. You want to up your number a little bit?
How big? 100 times? I don't know.
You want to up your number a little bit there,
Can't be
Sam?
1,000 times.
How much, Sam?
What's the number?
So one VPN, Proton VPN, reports an hourly increase of 1,400% in
Hey, that's
signups.
exactly the amount that Trump says he's going to lower drug prices by.
1,400%.
Been claiming that
Now, what do you expect to happen?
with the VPNs.
Well, here you want to make age verification. Politicians, we need age verification.
Well,
So
and then,
here's an end run around the age
of course there
verification.
is. So the next thing you have to do is ban VPNs for the children.
Yes. So the UK is looking into banning VPN.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what Putin did. But um,
But
yeah,
but there's a but.
I can think of a few. Yeah.
The but is using a VPN to bypass the new age security checks is not a crime in the UK.
Oh, that's interesting. Um,
Sam, can this get well, I guess you made it even funnier with UK. I mean with RFK.
yeah, well, we'll see. But I mean, this is like all attempts to regulate the internet. The problem is it's real hard technically to limit what people do on the internet, and it's also has negative consequences for privacy and such. So, if they ban VPNs, then people will just like I did when I went to China, they'll develop a VPN to get past the ban.
Yeah,
One
and
of the many things that
you
will happen.
know, Sam, I got to think about this a little bit because I've kind of heard this discussed. Why is there a ban?
Well, because the government wants to inspect and control the traffic. For example, when BlackBerry expanded to the United Arab Emirates, it is a
Yeah.
legal requirement that the government has to be able to see plain text transmissions of anything coming out of the country. So BlackBerry had to make a server in the UAE that would be encryption endpoint so they could decrypt it and let the government inspect it. And the same thing at corporations, right? They intercept HTTPS connections because they have to be able to know what you're doing. So
Yeah, okay, that I get, but I'm talking about age verification. Ultimately, what are we trying to do?
well, what we're trying to do, presumably, is to prevent children from being harmed by seeing inappropriate content. And like we were talking about last time, there are some pretty serious studies suggesting that some of the stuff that's happening on the internet is in fact harming the children.
Okay, and so are we talking about specifically pornography?
Well, I don't know if they've proven that pornography harms children. The stuff that there's really strong evidence for is that smartphone ownership harms children,
Okay.
that social networks harm children. I don't know if the pornography is what harms them, but I think it's the big problem is the social networks. Instead of making friends in real world, they go to these social networks and have some inferior form of friendship that doesn't in fact teach them the social skills they're going to need to succeed in life. And,
Okay, okay,
and it also
that's
makes all the
yeah.
women see these impossible goals of beauty so they feel ugly and miserable and start doing self-harm and being suicidal. And I think, everybody is compared to this sort of cartoonish life that you could be having. Everybody else seems to be having all these great parties and being beautiful. And why aren't you? It creates a peer group where you're vastly inferior. Whereas if you just hung around the kids in your neighborhood, you wouldn't feel vastly inferior to them.
Yeah, but Sam, that's something that's been going on that's not new. We had that with magazines and
Well, I
TV
think
shows.
no, I think it's much more engrossing. I mean, people actually go online many hours a day instead of going out and meeting real people. So that is their real social network is this online stuff, which is sort of artificial and unhealthy. That's the argument. Sounds pretty good to me, but
Well, what about people who go and watch movies or TV shows, binge watch?
well, there's no actual social networking there. You're not actually making friends or chatting with those people. There's no interaction. So I think it's a lot.
Well, but you're consuming what you're watching on TV or in the movies.
You are, but I think it's not as bad to realize I'm not as beautiful as the people on TV as to realize I'm not as beautiful as any of my friends. They're all coming in,
Okay,
all
okay.
coming to me with TikTok filters, and they're all saying they have this wonderful life, and my life is trash by comparison, which is kind of like the soft power of Hollywood America has against other nations. Like people in North Korea will watch an American TV show and say, "Wait a minute, I don't have to have this miserable life. I could have this better life." It's the same kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah. I'm not disagreeing. I'm
Yeah,
just asking questions.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
because I heard a little discussion a while back with all this age verification, and apparently freedom of speech, I guess is the way, or the freedom to consume speech, however you want to phrase that. There's nothing, there are no laws against kids watching pornography. In other words,
Well, there
there's
is
no
some.
age verification.
Well, there's something called the Communications Decency Act, and there's other ones. There have been acts in the past that sort of ban pornography on television and such, and people try to apply them to the internet, and there's questionable arguments about the legality of it.
Yeah, but that's in media.
Yeah.
And yeah, I understand that, but there are no laws per se, which I
Well,
thought was kind of interesting. I always thought there were. It's to purchase the product, but not to consume it.
yeah, and that they are fighting it in courts and that. That's why,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
law requiring age verification in the UK. I guess they needed to pass that law because they didn't have it before, and we don't have it here. But they do have state laws now, like Florida and I guess Texas are banning pornography and requiring age and a lot of other things. I've heard all kinds of things are now blocked, requiring age proof, even like medical stories and like other things that aren't really pornography at all, but they fall too close to the line.
Yeah, yeah. So, we're back to banning books.
Right. Which we already do. High school libraries aren't supposed to have books about sexuality, and now they aren't supposed to have books about gay people or transgender people or any books about DEI where like black people get a fair shake or anything.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there you have an ideological test for what book goes in there. And now they're going to have an ideological test for all veteran grants. Trump just issued an executive order saying all national grants have to pass through a political official who will examine them to see if they are furthering our agenda, our policy goals. And if they aren't, we'll yank back the money and cancel all the grants.
And how much of this do you think is based on Project 2025 agenda?
All of it. Trump's
Yeah,
the
okay.
Project 2025. In fact, I heard a study said they said he's already accomplished something like 45% of the Project 2025 goals. Those people have said they're ecstatic. They thought maybe only like 20% of this would ever be enacted by the end of 4 years. And Trump is like the greatest heroic president ever because he accomplished more 2025 stuff faster than anybody thought possible.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a Project 2025 status report website.
Yeah, well,
So, yeah, you could check to see.
he's
Yeah,
very effective in implementing that stuff. The problem is that stuff is not very well planned. It's not actually benefiting people.
true,
Yeah.
true. I would agree.
Yeah.
All right, what other stories you got for us? Let's
Oh,
move on.
in the same, I got some politics in the same spirit. Trump passed a 100% tariff on chips, silicon chips, which would destroy Apple. And he said, well, just make your phones in America. And of course, they can't do that because the labor costs are so high here. So what Apple did, Tim Cook is really smart. He did two things. He promised to spend $100 billion investing on factories in America, and he gave Trump a gold statue with a solid gold base and like a big glass thing etched with his name. And so Trump made Apple an exception to the tariffs. So they understand how to deal with a dictator. You just give him like a piece of gold, and he'll say, oh, you're good guys. I'll let you off. Which is what Trump said all along. The whole point of tariffs is not that I actually want to implement them. I want to scare people so they come to me and make a deal. And making a deal means give me a bribe. So Tim Cook continues to be very successful at
Good, good.
steering Apple through this current corrupt administration by just paying the bribe to move his company along. That is to benefit shareholders in the short run, I guess. And so here, Microsoft is using Azure to help Israel surveil Palestinians. And they're intercepting all the phone calls and listening to them, a million phone calls an hour, and they're using AI in Azure to do it. So this is the kind of thing, I think it was at Microsoft's earning call. The employees were there protesting, saying, wait a minute, why are you contributing to the destruction of Gaza? And they totally are. Just like IBM helped apartheid, um, Microsoft is
Well,
apparently helping the genocide in Palestine. Uh,
yeah, well, to be fair, IBM also helped the Nazis
right.
identify the Jews and the
Yep.
tattoos that the Jews were serialized with that were given their numbers
Yep.
were their IBM punch card numbers.
Yeah, and this is the problem with like when Google expanded to China. The problem is if you want to be in a foreign nation, you have to go along with their government and their laws and do things even if they don't seem good from our values. It's a it's a complex situation.
Right. It always is.
It
Always
is.
is.
Yeah. Anyway, and then I got some information sec ones. Some more password vaults have been hacked, CyberArk and HashiCorp. They turn out to have serious vulnerabilities that weren't caught before. That's being handed out at DEF CON or Black Hat. And Violet Blue makes an InfoSec newsletter, which is called Threat Model. And the latest one has inside dirt on the DEF CON bans. DEF CON has now banned 5 people permanently. And there's a little bit, she apparently has been like a girlfriend to all 5 of these guys or something. So she knows them. So she has some interesting dirt on who they are. And, they're all the famous people, like Captain Crunch is one of them. And,
Wait,
um,
why is he banned?
oh, because he's a pedophile. This was known all along for like 20 years. And
I see. I see.
And that's pretty much what it all. And Had Nagy just got banned of a big lawsuit because they said he was really toxic and abusing women and everybody else and lying to people and stuff. And um, they're all pretty hostile, nasty people, and they've all been banned apparently. And there's the dirt is coming out about that. So
And it's justifiable why they're banned.
it sounds like that. I mean, I don't have personal experience
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
guys. I don't
yeah.
know, but they're all accused of pretty reasonable things like abusing women or abusing their employees, falsely representing their services, things like that. The usual rotten stuff people do.
Well, wait a minute.
Like that.
if that's the case, why is DEF CON in Las Vegas?
Well, that's a tradition. It's because it all started with DEF CON with DT um, partying with his friends in Las Vegas for like a birthday party or something. They had a
Yeah.
party in Las Vegas, and then they said, "This is great. We should do this every year, and we're going to call it a con." So,
So might they have been abusing women there,
oh,
so to speak?
I'm sure. I know. Well, that's
So if they don't want to do that, they should move to the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City.
You're certainly right that there's an aspect of hypocrisy with an event in Las Vegas pretending to have like morals, but that's where we
Right.
are. Like, I wish they didn't have the damn thing in Las Vegas. I'd be much happier if it was in um, San Diego. But the thing about Las Vegas, I've been talking to my friends here about this. 90% of people seem to love this place. They go out of their way, they come here to spend money, they buy the ridiculous costumes, they gamble. And people I know come here, like one member of the family will go to DEF CON and the rest of the family will go to Las Vegas and play, and they're happy with that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would voluntarily come to Las Vegas because I don't want to do any of this stuff, but 90% of people do want to do this stuff. To be fair, I've always been the weird kid not fitting in. And like DEF CON is that way. 90% of people look at DEF CON and say, ugh, these are awful people. What the hell are they doing? This is not worth doing at all. I'm going to go to slot machine instead. But we're the strange people that find this attractive to have a bunch of nerds talk about their technical accomplishments with their gadgets.
Well, Sam, I had to, a year ago, I was in San Diego. I was doing some work down there
Yeah,
and
it's nice.
hotel prices,
Yeah.
pardon?
It's nice down there.
Yeah, San Diego is nice.
Yeah.
However, hotel prices where was staying jumped from, I think it was, $200 a night to $1,200 a night.
That's,
And the company I was working for said, wait a minute, why is the price going up? Turns out it was Comic-Con.
oh, yeah.
So 100,000 people invaded San Diego
Yeah.
in all their costumes. And I think San Diego also hosts the furry convention.
Yeah.
So talk about strange people. Why aren't they in Vegas?
It's a good place to go to a convention. San Diego
It
is
is.
a lot more
Yeah.
friendly than Vegas, but of course it doesn't have all the slot machines and shows and everything, which is what a lot of people want here. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to each his own.
yeah, yeah. So there's a big vulnerability called Revault that turns out that 100 models of Dell laptops have a vulnerability. There's a secondary daughter board on the motherboard that's sort of like a trusted platform module. It's supposed to be running a security code, and it turns out that there are vulnerabilities. There's a way to replace the secret that's used to validate the firmware, and then you can put up poisonous firmware and take it over, I think. Pulse went into this in much more detail.
I see.
Pulse Security
Okay.
Weekly. But the point is, it's pretty serious, affecting 100 laptops, and I'm not sure what they're going to have to do to fix it. But anyway, that's a big InfoSec story that I don't know very much about. Pretty deep.
Got it.
Um, like these fundamental, boot up process attacks are pretty complicated. Paul's the expert on that stuff. And here's a simpler
Okay.
one that's pretty funny. So there's a Thai hospital that had a data breach that goes like this. They have all these medical records printed on paper, and they took the paper they didn't need with medical records and used it to wrap snacks. So you buy like French fries, and they give you a piece of paper with the French fries, and that piece of paper is somebody's medical report. They got pictures of this. And then they said, hey, you can't do that.
You know who else did that? There was a hospital, well-known hospital in the US, that they took the recycled paper and they decided, hey, we should turn these into notepads. So they took the pieces of paper, they bound them together, they handed them out.
Yeah.
One side was blank, the other side were people's medical records.
I know, it's amazing. I mean, somebody just sees this pile of paper and say, we should do something with that. And nobody stops to think about, wait a minute.
Yeah, yeah, the wait a minute.
Yeah,
Why is it being thrown away?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, all right. And so there's now an Ohio law that passed, which is pretty interesting, that bans governments paying ransomware payments. They say not only does every agency have to have a security plan, but they cannot pay ransomware without like having a public meeting and getting people to like vote on it. to decide whether you really want to pay the ransom. I think this is real progress. Like I thought all along, the only thing that will fix ransomware is when people stop paying the ransom. And at least you can ask your government agencies and police agencies to not pay the ransom, for example. And that's what they're finally doing in Ohio. So we'll see how it works out. We're all going to watch this with interest to see what the consequences are, I think. But
Well, I think we've already seen the consequences. In Oakland, California, they were a victim of ransomware attack.
yeah,
It took them over 2.5 months to get back.
yep.
And during that time, all city offices, for the most part, were shut down. We've also seen where police departments, their computers have been ransomed and they're going to trial with murder cases and they can't proceed because they can't
Well,
provide the evidence.
well, to be fair, and it's the official
Yeah,
recommendation from the people from I think CISA and stuff. They say what this means, you need to invest in better recovery strategies from your backups.
right.
Everybody should be more resilient than that, and then you wouldn't have to pay the ransom. What you're revealing is your network was not set up correctly. If it takes you 2 months to recover from that, then obviously you need to improve your restoration process.
Yeah. But, I would argue, I don't know how many city employees Oakland has, but you take a look at the cost that they,
Yeah.
lost productivity of paying workers to just
Yeah.
sit around and do nothing
Yep.
versus, paying whatever the ransom would be. But they refused, and people in Oakland, I think, would have voted gladly to have the ransom paid. I'm not sure, but that's kind of my sense because a lot of people weren't able to conduct business with the city.
Yeah, well, it's a classic tragedy of the commons.
Right.
Short-term benefit for one group is
Yeah.
poisoning for everybody else.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
fact is, that's why you use regulation is the answer. If it was illegal for anybody to pay the ransom, then you would get over this. People would learn that is not an option. You must invest in resilience instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and the last one I thought was pretty amazing. Tempest LoRa. This guy found out now LoRa is all the big thing. I hear about it all over the place. The long range uh, wireless signals, and you can emit LoRa from VGA or HDMI cables on computers. So you just have something like an image with stripes in it, and that'll create the right amount of variation in the video cable, which emits these radiations that can be picked up like hundreds of meters away. So it's another cute sort of Tempest-like way to send data in a covert channel from a machine. And I hadn't thought of that. Apparently the video cables are not shielded as much as they would need to be to stop this.
Well, I think they were shielded, and then the technology improved that they didn't need to be shielded.
Yeah.
And we're talking 1980s versus, modern day.
Yeah. And it reminds me there was something about 10 years ago where they would make high frequency sounds to send data away from your machine that was not audible and stuff like that. And there are also ways to make flickering lights to send data off. There's the point is if you actually want to make sure nobody is stealing the data from your machine, like the original Tempest project from like 30 years ago said, the only way to do that is to be in like a basement with no windows and metal all around you.
Yeah, Faraday cage, essentially.
Well, no, it also has to block light because you can shine a laser in and bounce it off at any part of the
Um,
computer and then get the vibrations from typing. The fact is, if you like have top secret data you're putting in a computer, you pretty much have to be like locked in a vault.
yeah, well,
And
yeah.
that's why
If you can,
we now have those special places, right? There's a word for them, the special places, secure compartmented facilities, SCIFs.
skips, yeah,
That's where you go.
yeah.
And that's what they are. You're basically sort of locked in a bank vault. So they can have high confidence to believe nobody is snooping on what you're doing.
True, true, true.
Yep.
All right, I got the final story for you, Sam,
Okay.
for this Friday, right?
Yeah.
So in Brazil, there's some tribes that haven't had contact, right, with modern society.
Hard to believe
And
there are many of them left, but I guess there's still a few.
yeah, yeah. So there's some other stories we could talk about. Anyway, there are these tribes that are there, and Brazil passed a law that makes it illegal for outside content, or pardon me, outside contact with anybody outside of the tribe.
Wow.
So somehow, and I'm not sure how, but there's a group or I should say, let me rephrase this. Somehow the tribe has been finding these what are called talking boxes that have been left there, and they've been they're spewing sermons in English and Spanish. They're solar powered, and they're just essentially loudspeakers that just talk about gospel.
Like the Voice
And
of America.
yeah, and so we know who produces the boxes because there's a Christian organization saying that they're the ones that manufacture the
No, this was
boxes.
the whole thing in the invasion of America. Was we're going to save the savages by converting them to Christianity.
Yeah.
That's an old thing, man.
But here's the thing. When asked, how did the boxes get to these tribes? The Christian groups that manufactures is, they say, oh, we have no idea.
Yeah, yeah. This reminds me of the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy from like 30 years ago, where there's this isolated tribe and somebody drops a Coke bottle from an airplane.
Yeah.
Find this Coke bottle and they say, what is this? How can it have this shape? It must come from must be like a religious symbol from some other society. They have a huge expedition to go out and find out about this amazing mysterious object, you know.
And if I remember right, they realized you could use as a rolling pin, you could use as
Yep.
to smash,
You know, if you found
like
it,
grind.
if you were no technology and you found that, you'd say, this is a really strange rock. What could cause this and what good is it? And maybe we want to find more of these rocks somewhere.
Yeah, and you know what's kind of funny, Sam, is there's a moral to this movie story here, if you
What?
will. The star, if you will, who played the African, who is the I guess the lead actor in that. I'm not sure if he was even an actor,
Mhm.
but they paid him something like 70, $80,000. He received the cash and he said, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And it eventually, I think there was a windstorm that blew a lot of the money away. And he said, I can't use this. It's worthless to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
He
So,
passed away not too long ago.
yeah, well, anyway, I can see people probably feel self-righteous and feel like they're saving the savages from burning in hell by putting loudspeakers proclaiming Christian sermons in probably a language they don't speak.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other claim is they're not doing anything illegal because they're not making direct contact with them.
Yeah, well, it's that's another one of those tough situations. I mean, you would think it would be a good idea to at least bring them like medicine and vaccines or something, you know.
Well, I think they're immune because
Well,
they've been isolated so long. Obviously, not to everything,
yeah, well,
but
but I would
but
imagine there are some aspects of modern technology that would actually benefit them.
true,
I would
true.
think, like better ways to grow crops and nutrition but anyway, of course, with that
There,
come all the negative consequences of society. I mean, there are intentional communities like the Amish that refuse to participate in most of modern society because they think it's polluting, like monks in a monastery. And that's okay if you choose that, I guess. But it's a tough one.
yeah, yeah. It's tough. It's whatever you want. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's whatever, however you want to live your life, and you should not dictate how others should live their lives.
Well, I
How's
don't
that?
think so, but of course, the evangelical Christians do think they have a really important reason to convert them to Christianity. It is like super important, and they'll be grateful for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, that's it for me.
All right. So that's it for Friday. And normally we'd have another one of these on Tuesday, but I'll be teaching a class then, so we're going to do it on Wednesday. So that's a
Okay.
thing to be aware of
So Wednesday is the new Tuesday
for this week, because
for this week only.
I'll be teaching from 8 to 5 at DEF CON for the next 4 days. So uh,
All right. And has DEF CON started? No, or
yeah,
it's
DEF
about
CON
ready.
technically started yesterday, although there's almost nothing really happening on Thursday. Today is going to be the first big day. And DEF CON, the proper, will go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but the paid training has 4 day classes, and mine's going to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, all day.
Oh, oh, they're charging for training?
Oh, yeah, they're competing with Black Hat. This is like a $3,000 class. So people are paying money to take a training class. There's 2 day and 4 day classes, paid trainings, and they're starting to have more events than just the one a year DEF CON. And of course, the thing I'm excited about, there's going to be DEF CON Singapore, and the details of that should come out after this DEF CON, so in the next few weeks. Now, I want to apply for that. I went to DEF CON China both times, and it was very interesting. And I'd like to go to DEF CON Singapore. So
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
I've tried to get to Black Hat Singapore before. There is a Black Hat. I've applied, but they haven't approved my presentations yet. But I'll keep trying. Um, I did get approved for Black Hat Europe, but that was remote during like the pandemic, so I didn't actually get to go see it in Europe. But there's the cons are over there. One thing I'd also like to do is some of the conferences in like Abu Dhabi, but I haven't broken into any of them yet. But I have taught
Yeah.
classes at Black Hat USA and a lot of workshops at DEF CON, and so I'm gradually breaking into these things. And DEF CON China was great.
Yeah. Got it.
I'm
Got
really
it.
glad I had a chance to go to China. I mean, I think it's a lot harder to go now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I guess we're on friendlier terms with Singapore, but I wonder if I could teach encryption there. They wouldn't let me teach encryption in China, and maybe I can't teach encryption in Singapore either, but I can teach other things.
Got it. Got it.
Anyway,
All right.
yep.
Sounds good, Sam.
All right.
We'll resume on Tuesday or Wednesday.
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 Okay.